Why is this card good? It looks so bad.
Oh,
What does it do?
Mouse, have you? Sorry, just before you got, have you played against any Mouse?
No, I haven't, but it just
Yeah,
looks awful.
no one who's played against this card would have this take. It's outrageous. Oh my god.
It's so
Okay.
good. I love seven
Why?
so much.
7,000,000.
Seven.
7
Seven.
7. 7.
7 Point Highlander. Hello and welcome to 7 Point Cast. My name is Liam and I'm joined by my co-host Mouse.
Hey, glad to be here.
This evening we'll be talking to Henry. Hey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into 7 Point Highlander and why it's the best possible format of all of Magic?
Sure. So I started playing Magic about like 12, 13 years ago. I remember like taught during high school with some Innistrad starter decks, and like my first pre-release was the original Theros.
Mhm.
And then like played different competitive formats from then. Like as I finished high school, was finally like able to afford a competitive deck. Like bought the black white tokens modern event deck. Shifted over to black white Eldrazi when Oath of the Gatewatch came out, and then all those cards spiked. Sold it and bought Lantern Control and played for 3 years. Lantern
3
Control.
years playing Lantern Control?
Yeah, well, like at uni, I didn't have a lot of time for Magic, so I wanted to play something that made me feel really satiated after a tournament, because I could only
Oh,
play like once
God.
every 2-3 weeks.
I was gonna say,
Guys,
like, it's like I didn't have a lot of time to play Magic, so naturally I played a deck which, can
Yeah,
plausibly make each game go on for half an hour if your opponent's patient enough. Like,
I went to time less playing Lantern Control than I do playing aggro decks for some reason. I don't know
yeah,
exactly why, but
it's the
that
it's the demoralize your opponent line of killing them.
absolutely. And then I played some Pioneer when that was like decently a thing in like 2020 when you could play any Magic.
Yeah.
Um, as soon as like Lurrus came out, I was like, I want to play any deck which has Lurrus in it.
Mm.
So my friends started getting back into like Modern a bit before MH2, and I built Hammer Time right before MH2 came out. Played that all the way through till around Lord of the Rings came out, and that deck slowly became less and less tiered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at the beginning of last year, I hadn't played this entire time. I've also got Commander decks, right?
Mm.
And I'm at the beginning of last year. I haven't been able to play Commander in like ages. I have the 14 Commander decks, and a bunch of my friends are going down to CanCon to play in the 7 Point Highlander tournament, which have not been across at all. I'm like, all right, cool. Sounds like you guys are all gonna have fun. I'm not gonna borrow a deck for a format to play in a competitive tournament for a format I've never played before. But I'll come along because I've got the time, and that sounds like a fun time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play all my Commander decks, and I'm going to take apart any of the ones which don't spark joy anymore. So I took after that I took about like 7 of my Commander decks,
Yeah.
and was like, wow, all these guys had so much fun playing this format, and Hammer Time just isn't good anymore in Modern. I could give this a try, sure. So I took apart a Cole the Forge Master CEDH deck and built a terrible red-white Mox Opal aggro deck
Hell
using
yeah.
a bunch of using like Gleeful Demolition and Kuldotha Rebirth and Skull Clamp and all these things. It honestly wasn't too bad. It had an incredibly low floor and incredibly high ceiling.
Yeah. It's like the feeling of the old like Goblin Bushwhacker plus Devastating Summons. It's like, the wins have got to be sweet enough to justify the times where it doesn't quite line up.
Yeah, and I was like, I didn't have to invest like almost anything into building that deck because I had almost all the cards for it, and I didn't want to buy into a 7 Point Highlander deck until I knew the format well enough to know what roughly was good and what wasn't.
Yeah.
So I played at Chromatic Games in Ashfield, where a lot of like Steven and a lot of like Team Bust Up play, and a lot of my friends play. And after about like 3-4 months, I had been like eyeing different fast mana because I was like, okay, I think fast mana is the most powerful thing you can be doing at the moment. That was like a very Boros initiative, Mardu initiative heavy metagame. What fast mana isn't pointed that I could make work? And at that time, I was like, so my day job is I'm a statistical analyst at the Australian Bureau of Statistics. But I think a lot about ratios when building decks, and I kept coming back to Mox Amber and going, is there enough? I think there's enough. I think you need at least 6 legends that'll cost 1 mana to make this work. And that's what brought me to hit this deck, to like Boros Legends, is I was like, I want to have a fast mana deck with a much higher floor than the deck I was playing before, but still has a really decently high ceiling because of getting to play fast mana. Yeah.
And you're definitely right, by the way, that the key to the Mox Amber is not even legends; it's specifically 1-drop legends. Like the Mox Amber, the like 1-drop legend, Mox Amber, 1-drop legend. It's the dream start. I had a friend who was building like a mono white legends list, and I said to him, "Listen, I've talked to Henry a lot. He says that it's all about the 1-drop legends, so I went really deep on making sure he had the right amount." And he played for a couple of weeks and sent me back the message. He's like, "Yep, the 1-drop Mox Amber thing is the truth. Like they're night and day."
Absolutely. Like the games you win where you go, the games you play when you go turn 1, land, 1-drop legend, Mox Amber, second 1-drop legend, you win those games a huge amount of the time. It's just very silly. So like, when I started pulling the deck, I was on 6, and I was like, this is just too low. Funnily enough, so Norrin Swift Survivalist came out in Duskmorn, and I dismissed that card initially and didn't go up to 7 legends until Kellen Planar Traveler was printed in Foundations.
Yep.
So I like in the for the RC7 tournament, which I played and won playing this deck. I'm confident that deck is suboptimal because I'm not playing Norrin in it. And Norrin is, I think, actually the third best 1-drop in the deck.
Yeah, I've just realized we've kind of like jumped into card analysis like accidentally.
Sorry, yes.
We are talking about 8-point Boros Legends, right, featuring Mox Amber, the aforementioned card, and now we're talking about some of these 1-drop legends, these criminally underrated heroes who just make the deck hum along. Do you want to actually just tell us what Norrin Swift Survivalist is? Because I'm confident that a large amount of listeners have probably never heard of this card.
Oh yeah, banger uncommon from Duskmorn.
Yeah.
So it's a red mana for a legendary creature, human coward. It's a 2/1. It can't block. Incredible start. It has the very relevant text. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may exile it. You may play that card from exile this turn. So that text, I initially was very turned off by the can't block text. Now, I know I'm an aggro deck, but I really like my 1-drops being able to block when we get to the mid-ish, late-ish game, because I want the board to stall out a bit until I can find like a way to go over the top or way to get through. I don't want them to be able to freely get attacks in while my 2/1 like is not threatening anything on the crackback. So I was originally turned off by it. What I hadn't really considered with Norrin is what it means when your opponent has a lifelink creature, like a Barragoyf. If they have a Barragoyf and you have a Norrin, it doesn't matter. You attack with everything, they block, you just exile the thing that was blocked by the Barragoyf, they gain no life. That's incredible.
Yeah, in my head, I was looking at this card being like, oh yeah, I guess like it means they can never keep the initiative because they can block the initiative creature, but you play the initiative creature. But of course, like that's way more marginal than just this card just blanks lifelink.
Yeah, the card blanks lifelink, that's humongous. There's a bunch of other cool stuff that it does do, you don't actually have many ETBs, but like every now and again it will let like Ajani, Nakata Pariah get in for 1 damage because they don't want to block it and give you another 2/1. It'll let you attack into things and recast stuff when you're out of cards to cast, and like so you're still like getting to maintain pressure. But by far the most important thing is this lets you attack into Baragorth and Atraxa or like a Metamorphosis Fanatic and still win the game.
Yeah.
And that's humongous.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's good. Norrin was not the card I thought we'd start talking about, but it is awesome.
Yeah, and the other thing is that all of the other Savannah Lions that you're playing require some kind of mana investment to get its additional thing. Like, except I guess Isamaru, but
yeah.
So Norrin not requiring the mana to get the main thing is really valuable.
Yeah. Cool. So in terms of one-drops, like the legends we've got are Basri, Norrin, Ragavan, recently appointed, Isamaru, Yoshimaru, which Yoshimaru is like that card can just become monstrously large in this deck.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Kellen, Kithian, and Zergo. How do you rank them? Like what's the most important one-drops to the least important, do you think?
So I did actually make a tier list of this before we called.
Awesome.
So Yoshimaru and Ragavan are the best two by a lot. They both have the highest ceiling and reasonably low floors. Technically, Yoshimaru has the lowest floor, but in actuality, that rarely matters. Yoshimaru is, if you have it on turn 1, regularly threatening to be a 5/5 by the time it attacks on turn 3.
Yep.
Sometimes even before then. Then it's Norrin in A tier. I think Norrin is the next most important one. And then I think, honestly, the rest of them are all quite interchangeable. They all have, they're all 2 power. They all cost 1 mana, and that's really all that really matters about them. They all have some level of threatening to them. I think Basri is probably the worst one, just because that making a token, exerting itself to make a token means it can't threaten much at all.
It's mostly just a legendary Savannah Line, but that's fine.
It's legendary Savannah Line, and that's all you care about.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, it's funny because I think Basri has a lot of text on it. I think Isamaru is better than Basri because being a 2/2 means you can attack into the various 1/2s that people play and not have to worry about them deciding to trade. Kellen and Kithian are both like quite threatening if they get to live a bit. They often don't get to live a bit, but if they do, that's really good. And then Zergo's great. Having dash is really good. It's Ragavan, I promise.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you get a powering the white tree down, the dashing for 4 is not small. Like it's big.
Yeah. Zergo is probably 4th, I would say, like just behind Norrin, because dash is so good.
Can I ask on this like one drop legends chat? We've brought up this term like Savannah Line a lot, which for those who are not initiated is just this old single white 2/1. And at the time that was something somewhat remarkable because to have a one drop which was not like bigger than a 1/1 was like a thing. It was like, oh wow, there's not many cards which have this. There are some one drop white legends coming out in the Final Fantasy which are not Savannah Lions. They've got the opposite. They're the 1/2. So the ones I'm thinking of are the Stiltskin, right? Which it's 1 for a 1/2 lifelink. And the other one is Zach Fair, which has which also has the has 1 sack, move its 1/1 counter. Does it move its 1/1 counter or not? No, it just gives
it does.
It does, yeah, and it gives something indestructible. Like these are actually, these are relevant lines of text, like probably more relevant than Basri's. But they're 1/2s. How do you evaluate that? Is it really you're an aggro deck? It needs to be a Savannah line, or are these like semi-relevant line of text enough to push them over the edge? Do you think?
I think so. I think Stiltskin definitely doesn't get there. Lifelink is just not enough unless you have other ways to buff its power. And Flowering is probably the next best card in the deck after like Moxamba, maybe. It might even be better than Moxamba, but like Stiltskin, I don't think gets there. Zach Fair's closer. Moving the +1 count is quite good. I played a lot of Alseid of Life's Bounty in Pioneer, which is a very similar card in terms of you can sacrifice it to give a thing protection from a color of your choice for 1 mana, and it's a 1 mana 1/1 lifelink.
Yeah.
Moving the count is really good. Indestructible is worse than protection. I think it's close.
Yeah.
I
But
think
that
Zac
tells
Fair
me that
gets there if you play the equipment package. I don't think it does if you don't.
okay, but that tells me that the two power is really important. Like this is an aggro
Yeah.
deck you need to do to hit hard and fast.
Yeah. The other one-drop legend that is relevant to Boros Legends is Freya Crescent, which is only a 1/1. It has flying during your turn for a red mana, and it can tap to add red to cast equipment or activate equips.
Mm.
So again, if you're on the equipment package, I think Freya gets in there because flying is really good. This deck has very little of it. It has one flying card. So I think Freya gets there if you can. Again, if you have any way to buff its power.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Yeah, so there's like the equipment consideration package and not. Which do you
Yeah.
want to talk about? Do you want to just jump into that equipment thing now? We're talking about Hammer Time before. You know, we've got the Core Eye Steel Cutter now. Like it seems that equipment's getting a lot of love. Like if there's been a time to port Hammer Time in, maybe this is it. What would like a theoretical equipment package look like?
I love the equipment package. I was on it for a really long time. What the important thing before we get into individual cards, the important thing is what the equipment package does to your matchups.
Okay.
So it lowers your floor a bit, which is unfortunate. I just heard a noise from Discord. Am I still good?
Yeah, you're still good.
Okay, cool. So it lowers your floor a bit, which is unfortunate. In that you will have some draws that are less consistent because of it.
Mhm.
But it gives you a huge amount of late game staying power. In like you're an aggro deck, but you're an aggro deck which has a lot of mana in it and will like get to 4 or 5 in quite a lot of games which go long. So you don't mind paying equip costs in the later game. And Lava Spur Boots in particular is such an incredible card. Granting haste is so good, and it's really threatening. It gives you a lot of like false tempo, basically. If you have a Lava Spur Boots in play, your opponent's at a low life total, they don't want to attack you because they might need to block.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like if you top deck something that's threatening.
This is a deck with like 20 plus creatures. Like the chances of you drawing a creature are actually pretty high.
Yes, exactly. So just having a Lava Spur Boots in play is really threatening against lots of decks. And then like Shadow Spear makes your matchup in an aggro mirror incredibly good. Pre-War Formalware is an absurd card, especially when you're playing a copy of Broadside Bombardiers and it's threatening 5 damage from out of nowhere.
Not to mention like getting back the White Plume Adventurer or flickering this card with Felia. You know, there's a lot. Formalware actually does a lot of stuff.
Formware is huge. I was playing it for a little bit even without the equipment package actually, but the problem with Formalware is just that it doesn't help you curve out unless your opponent is actively playing removal or you trade early, which you don't really want to be happening. Which puts it in a weird spot. I don't really like it unless you can grab it when you need it. The other thing is that in order to play the equipment package, I think you have to be on Saga, which means you have to cut a point somewhere, which is tricky, because I think the points package is very tight. And I'm not sure where you cut it. So at the moment, because being consistent is so important right now, and the late game, if it goes there, you're probably losing a lot of the time. Even with the equipment package. I don't think the equipment package is great.
Yeah, okay.
But that might change if you have more cards that care about it. So, yeah, I think there's an entire build. It might even be like at this point. So there's these 7 cards here. So it's like at least 7 cards different. There's probably another 3 to 7 from Final Fantasy that you might now want to consider, which might make this an equipment version like literally a quarter different. Which is very interesting.
It's almost like a different deck, isn't it? Like, because I was thinking as well, there's like Stoneforge Mystic seems like a bit of a no-brainer, but like, you know, even Pure Steel Paladin, like if you get enough one-drop equipments, could be good.
Yeah. Paladin's interesting. Stoneforge is actually the reason I cut the equipment package finally, because playing a 2-mana 1/2 sucks in an aggro deck. I just kept finding that anytime I played Stoneforge Mystic, I was going to die.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because, like, Kellen's ability to search for an equipment is also 2 mana, and also puts you behind on tempo. But the thing is that Kellen, the Fey-Blooded on screen, his other side is a 2/2 double strike. So regularly his play patterns are actually on turn 3, you adventure him and get Lava Spur Boots and play Lava Spur Boots. And then on turn 4, you're threatening play Kellen, equip Boots, attack for 6, and then give the rest of your team +1 attack. And that regains all of the tempo you lost immediately.
If it survives. But yeah, I get what you mean.
If it survives. Which you're only really doing that play if Kellen is good in that matchup, so it's reasonably likely. If you're worried about Kellen not surviving, then you can just get pre-war Formalware and play along the game. Kellen, the Fey-Blooded, reads quite poorly and plays actually incredibly well. It's effectively an X spell. It's good at any point on the curve.
Yeah, cool. What do you think of cards like Fervent Champion? That's like the 1-mana 1/1 first strike haste, and you can equip something to it with cost 3 less. I'm thinking in particular cards like Formalware, obviously. It's like classically played with like the Swords of X and Y, but they're probably not in vogue at the moment.
It's at its best with GT, because it reduces all of the tempo lost from GT. If you play Fervent Champion on 1, GT on 2, you get to auto-equip it on for free and then attack with a first strike creature.
Yeah.
And then you win any creature matchup if it isn't removed immediately. I played a lot of Fervent Champion before I moved to this deck. And I think if you're building an equipment style deck, Fervent Champion is almost certainly a 1-drop you should be playing.
Yeah.
I think that working out that 1-drop sleeve is quite difficult, but Fervent Champion is incredible. Notably, Faya Crescent is a knight as well, and Fervent Champion gives a knight +1 attack when it attacks as well for some reason.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
And like, I imagine like Cassandra Eaglebearer, like the thing which gets the Spear of Leonidas and stuff. Like these are probably worth consideration in this like theoretical equipment build.
I think so, but I'm quite low on Cassandra in Highlander. I know people have tested her a bit in Modern recently, in like a Boros Hammer Time deck. I saw Aspiring Spike testing with that. And that list has 3 Cassandras to 1 Spear. I played Cassandra for a bit when I was first testing the Assassin's Creed cards here. And I just found that Cassandra gets Spear, great. If you ever draw the Spear, terrible. The Spear is a really, really bad card to draw. The next set came out, Bloomburrow, and it printed Mabel add a Cragflame, and I just cut Cassandra for Mabel and was very, very happy.
Well, that probably
Mabel's
provides
great.
like a nice segue back into your deck proper. Because despite the fact that your deck is not like an equipment deck, it still runs some cards like Mabel. Do you want to? Actually, we could talk about more 1-drops. Or do you want to talk about Mabel for a bit and where it fits?
Let's finish talking about the 1-drops and we'll get back to Mabel.
Yeah, cool.
When we get up the curve.
One thing about the 1-drops which I found really interesting, because I did a bit of building of this kind of deck and playing with it. And originally I'd underrated the importance of having 1-drops which aren't legends, but almost just as important as having like a 1-drop in Mox Opal or Mox Amber is then a card to cast with the Mox Amber. So
Yes.
there's having a lot of these 1-drops which most of them are white is actually a real big part of the deck.
Yeah, and it's something I need to revisit sometime soon, I think, because with the printing of Norrin and Kellen, the 1-drop, the color of your legendary 1-drop split has shifted. It's no longer heavy white, it's now 50-50 red-white. Which is a little awkward. But the thing is, there's just not that many great red 1-drops you want to be playing here compared to the power level of the white 1-drops.
All right, Lime, chime in. You play red 1-drops. What are the best ones?
Ragavan, Monastery Spear, Dragon's Rage Channeler, the Soul Scar Mage.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
and
so if you noticed, 3 of those cards really care about non-creatures, and I have 30 creatures.
Sorry, I didn't realize. Mouse asked me for the best cards, not a really.
That's fair. I like those are incredible cards. I'm not disagreeing.
Probably.
It's just that they don't work here.
Probably Goblin Guard.
Yeah, I could play Goblin Guide, I suppose.
I think that answer is quite revealing, right? Like, it's like, why is it that the deck leans into white? It's like, because the creatures that care about other creatures are white. Like, the red ones do tend to lean into instants and sorceries.
Yeah, I do think in the equipment version, DRC might actually be worth playing.
Mm.
Because if it giving itself flying becomes really, really powerful, and you're probably a little bit heavier on the non-creatures that it might get there. But
Mm.
I could be easily be wrong on that. I haven't actually played a Darcy deck, so don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
Mother and Giver, incredible cards.
Yeah. Not Skrelv.
Skrelv, I'm so sad to have cut. It hurt me immensely to cut Skrelv from the deck.
It looks like it should be good, right? Like it's a legend as well. What's holding it back?
It has one power.
Yeah. Okay.
is basically the answer. It has one power. Its protection is less good than Giver and Mother's. Like Giver's protection, also hitting colorless is really relevant, and having second toughness is relevant. Mother being able to protect itself is really relevant. Skrelv can't do those things.
Mm.
The other thing is the weirdness of ratios. I found if you ever drew all three, you usually lost the game.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you could usually draw two and be okay. And two could even be good a lot of the time, but yeah. Also, I think Skrelv got worse when I cut the equipment package, because Mother, Giver, and Skrelv are all incredible with Lava Spur Boots.
Mm.
If you can have a Mother effect in play and grant it haste immediately, it's absurd.
Yeah, and I suppose like in a theoretical, more equipmenty deck, you've got more artifacts. Mox Opal becomes a consideration. Skrelv likes Mox Opal, but in the creature version, you need to be focused on just like the creature element of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's even a reasonable argument Skrelv could still be in the deck. In my little tier list I made off to the side, I still put Skrelv in it. I just put it at C.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really close.
Yeah.
But I don't think this deck wants more than 12 1-drops. So
Yeah,
I
fair.
don't know where it would go.
Well, tell us about the 2-drops. Where what are we looking at here?
One last thing, because there's two 1-drops that haven't gotten a call out, are Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls,
Oh yeah.
who are absurd. And I don't think we really need to talk about them that much, because
Yeah.
everyone knows how absurd those two cards are.
Yep. They are very much like you draw them together. You're like, great, game's probably mine if they survive. That is, but yeah, they're... Actually, I do have one question, which is maybe worth asking. Say like you get a hand with like Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, Mother of Runes. How do you sequence it? What do you think the correct line is?
I'm probably leading... my instinct is to lead Guide of Souls, but that's probably wrong. It's probably right to lead Mother of Runes.
Yeah, I would have thought lead Mum and then go Guide Pride and see if you can just like protect get at least one trigger.
Because like if you go Guide Pride on turn 2, you're still getting the life gain triggering and triggering the Ocelot Pride. So yeah, it's probably lead Mum and then go Guide Pride on turn 2.
Well, if you had to choose between like leading on like Legends, is it basically like, look, I only lead on Legends if I have the Mox Opal, otherwise I'm usually leading on Mum?
Yes. For Mum, yes. For Giver, not really.
Okay.
Because if Mum lives turn 1, it's absurd, because she can protect herself.
Mm-hmm.
If Giver lives turn 1, it doesn't really matter, because Giver's the first priority kill whenever she's on the board.
Yeah.
And she can never protect herself. So, you don't really need to lead Giver that much. She's fine. She's actually a bit better later in the game when she's guaranteeing you get a hit in.
Mm.
As well as adding some additional protection stuff. Also absurd into Eldrazi. Pro Colorless is so silly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, certainly as a control player, I found when your opponent leads Giver, it is a bit of a shrug. It's like, I'll just wait till the really relevant thing comes down and then kill one after the other. Unless like the second turn play is something like a Ajani, where it's like, but that's like really the only 2-drop where, I guess like maybe Ajani and Philia, all of the other 2-drops are kind of like, it's much or muchness when I answer this. Yeah, maybe leading on Giver is like specifically good if you've got like the ultimately high impact 2-drop, but otherwise, yeah.
It's very contextual.
Alright, but otherwise, yeah. Tell us about these 2-drops.
2-drops. God, there's some great ones and some bad ones here. The best of the bunch is Mary. Mary is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Mary, Esquire of Rohan. Yes, he is a red and a white for a 2/2 halfling knight. For if you ever plan to play Fervent Champion, with haste. He's a legend. He has first strike as long as he's equipped, so also very good if you... It was much better when I had the equipment package, but it's still very good now because of the next line of text. Whenever you attack with Mary and another legendary creature, draw a card.
Mm.
If that gets to happen once, you are very likely ahead. If it gets to happen twice, you're probably going to win.
Yeah.
You are an aggro deck, you love to have cards, you normally don't get to have cards, and Mary gives you cards. So, Mary's absurd. Mary's the best 2-drop in the deck by a very wide margin, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really is well, like, it speaks to why you need that density of 1-drop legends, right? That's, like, kind of why I was wondering a little bit about stuff like Stiltskin and Zac Bear, because I'm like, oh, man, like, when you curve this into Mary, it's got to be the ultimate high, but you're right, there are, like, ratios, right? There are other considerations as well.
Yeah, and I think, like, 8 is enough for Mary to be to be, like, active on turn 2 regularly. So, like, it's pretty fine. I don't think you need more than that. And because Mary has haste, you can sequence him later. If, like, they kill your 1-drop, you play a 2-drop legend. If that lives, then you play Mary and draw a card. So, like, Mary's great. If you want to consider the actual best 2-drop in the deck, though, it is actually not a creature. So we may get to that later. That can be, like, a little foreshadowing.
Yep.
So, in terms of creatures, Felia, absurd. Ajani, very good. It's actually surprisingly hard to flip Ajani recently.
Because it's not like you're on a lot of 1-drop removal. You've just got Lightning Bolt and, I guess, Dismember.
Yeah, so you actually need you need 2 specific 3s to flip Ajani. You need to either curve Ajani into Gut or into Broadside Bombardiers. And then you get that's a very silly high roll, and that's really good. But if you don't have that, Ajani's just, like, very good against other creature decks, and okay into removal because he makes 2 bodies. So he's good. Ash Party Crasher is another very silly uncommon, or, like, very niche uncommon that I imagine most people don't know what it does. And I love her. She's great.
Yes, Ash is like 2 for 2 hastes, and then when it attacks, what is it, 2 or more non-land permanents?
Yeah. If 2 or more, she has Celebration. Whenever she attacks, if 2 or more non-land permanents have entered under your control this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Ash.
And how did you get the 2 permanents? Because it's not like you don't run Baubles, right? Like this isn't a. Are we holding Mox Amber for turn 2? Like what, or is it that you play this, like, on turn 3? Yeah, help me understand. How does it work?
You can do that. If you don't have a 1-drop legend, then yeah, you're probably playing Ash and Mox Amber on turn 2. But also, you don't just have Mox Amber as your fast mana. You also have Chrome Mox and Lotus Petal. And those both allow you to play an Ash on turn 1 and then attack for 3.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
And that is very, very threatening. You also have a few things that will make 2 non-land permanents happen on your 3s. So, like, Mabel makes 2 non-land permanents. Fable of the Mirror Breaker makes 2 non-land permanents. And you have so many 1 and 2s that, like, on turn 3, you're quite likely to be able to play, like, 2 1s or a 2 and a 1 to get her up there.
Okay, out of interest, the ones which do it on attack, like Kari's Evan Gut, does that work, or does it check on both, like, triggers and resolution?
Yeah, those don't work. It checks on triggers and resolution.
Oh, damn. Okay, right. So it has to be. But I hadn't considered that, like, that the Mabel angle, actually really does a lot of work there. And Fable, I don't think, is in currently this version, or is it in this version?
Fable is in this version, but it's an enchantment, so not on the screen.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, not on screen.
Yeah, so Ash is just surprisingly good. The thing is, the deck really wants haste, right? There's not a lot of haste. The other possible options for haste aren't block, really.
Yeah.
And don't have any good, like, power-based upside. Whereas Ash can actually snowball a bit, which is very powerful.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, in the grand scheme of things, 2 for a 2/2 haste is, like, acceptable. 2 for a 3/3 haste is already so overrate for an aggro deck that it's fine. Like, I'm just trying to think. There's like a black-red version of this card has like Echo. You discard a card or something. So you know, this is
Yeah,
better. If it ever goes to
absolutely.
4, you're just so happy. Like but it doesn't need to do that for it to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. Ash does not need to do much to be good, and like another thing, right, is if you say attack, say you play Mary and you attack, and you don't have another legendary creature, you really want your follow-up legendary to have haste, which Ash helps you with.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you run
so right.
Caracas? Is
Oh
there
yes,
like,
absolutely.
right? Yeah. So you could even like engineer situations where you're like dashing a Zergo and Caracasing a 1-drop and just doing silly things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Zergo and Ragavan both having dash both also help trigger Ash in the late game. That's really good. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. There's 3 more 2-drops. Or 4 more
Yeah.
2-drops. Alright, let's talk about the last obviously good one, which is Thalia.
Yep.
Thalia is very obviously good. I actually wasn't on her in the main deck for a long while, because if you're playing the equipment package, she disrupts yourself slightly too much for, I think,
Yep.
her to be in the main deck.
But yeah, she's been good forever. People know about Thalia. Everything, all of their non-creatures and yours cost 1 more. Stops the keen tripping, makes the removal frustrating. It's a great card.
Playing her turn 1, great. Love having the ability to play her turn 1 some of the time.
Yeah. Makes skip
Alright.
probes really annoying.
Yes, yes. Gate Probe is a card I like really want to try at some point, just because I love information and cycling my deck, but I don't think it's right. That's a discussion for later. Alright, last 3 2-drops. Arbaz, Senu, and Karizev.
Yeah.
Okay. Karizev looks not great, but Karizev has a huge amount of synergy with cards, and also doesn't die to Massacre as a 2-drop. All of your other 2-drops die to Massacre, except if Ash gets a counter on her. And that sucks. Or I guess if Felia gets a counter on itself as well. But Karizev, it makes a legendary token, which puts a counter on Oshimaru. It makes a token which you can sack to Gut. Makes a token which you can sack to Broadside Bombardiers. And with Flowering of the White Tree in play, it attacks for 7. So, and if you don't have any of those things, it still is very hard to block. Oh, I should probably read Karizev. That's an old card that is very niche. So Karizev's Skyship Raider is 1 and a red for a 1/3 legendary creature human pirate. She has First Strike and Menace, and whenever she attacks, you create a legendary 2/1 red monkey creature token named Ragavan that's tapped and attacking. Exile that token at the end of combat. So the OG Ragavan.
The original Ragavan. Have you got the Ragavan token as well?
I do. My Karizev is actually heavily damaged from Playground Play by my little brother.
Yeah.
He had a copy of it that I could play. He got his first pre-release. It and the Ragavan token are both very well loved and in very bad shape.
Yeah, but he's a champion. Like the Karizev, I think Liam and I, like, Liam, do you remember when we were playing like prowess lists and we were testing Karizev just because of like, it was just like quite an evasive. It was almost like another flyer.
Yeah, it was part of that suite of cards, Karizev, and what's the 2/2 haste, the rogue, that if you've got less cards in their hand.
Robber of the Rich?
Robber of the Rich, yeah. And then we're also playing like Lightning Stormkin, just a whole bunch of like 2-mana 2/2-ish power things.
Yeah, I think the thing which we found about Karizev, which is like, it's not, I guess it's not really printed on the card, but it's an interesting dynamic, is blocking it. Because it has menace, but it's also the less threatening part of the card, like it's the 1 damage part, it's kind of a lose-lose, right? Like if you block the Ragavan, the threat hasn't really gone away and they are chipping at you. But if you block the Karizev, it's like you have to put 2 dudes in front of 1 power, which just feels so stupid. And you still get dinged for 2 anyway. Like like there's some awkward blocking math, I think, which occurs with this card.
Absolutely, and it's so good at getting the initiative back.
Mm.
Like being 1 card that requires 3 blockers to stop, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay. I would love to talk about my pet card now. My pet bird is Senu. I love Senu so much.
Why is this card good? It looks so bad. What does it do?
Mouse, have you played against Senu, Mouse?
No, I haven't, but it just
Yeah,
looks awful.
no one who's played against this card would have this take. It's outrageous. Oh my god.
It's so
Okay.
good. I love Senna
Why?
so much. All right. I'm gonna read Senna because, oh my god. So it's 1 and a white for a 2/1 legendary creature bird scout. It has flying and vigilance. You can tap and exile Senna to gain 2 life and scry 2. And whenever a legendary creature you control attacks and isn't blocked, if Senna is exiled, put it onto the battlefield attacking. So, if Senna is not killed the turn that it comes into play, it is now never going to die. It's going to get exiled instead of being removed. And then, any follow-up legend is threatening to have an additional 2 damage come through because Senna is in exile. Also,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
you get to gaining 2 life and scrying 2 is very valuable. It lets you sculpt the top of your deck, get some lands out of the way. In an aggro deck, that's great. You don't normally get much card selection. Gaining 2 life triggers Ocelot Pride, which is fun. Also, if your opponent is tapped out and you have more other legendary attackers than they have blockers, you can safely exile Senna and scry and know you're going to get it back. Now,
Yeah.
the last thing that Senna does, which is really important, is Senna is a part of your highest high rolls. Because Senna doesn't care how it's exiled. If it's exiled to Gemstone Caverns, for example, or Chrome Mox, then it can come into play whenever it likes. From
Which
exile.
does
And then
turn off the Chrome Mox, but at that stage of the game you don't care. Like, you'd rather have the Senna.
I like to think that if your Senna comes out of your Chrome Mox, it's like it was a Black Lotus. You tapped it for white, and then it cast a 2-drop. So it's basically Black Lotus.
Could you, in theory, like, Felia, the Senna, and then if it's not...
You can! That's true. You can play Felia at end of turn, play Senna pre-combat, attack with Felia, exile Senna. If they don't block, Senna comes into play attacking.
So, yeah, Felia, like, kind of gives it haste. Yeah, okay, look, you're selling me on this card. I as well, like, I think relevantly, the exile is part of the cost of the ability, so they can't even kill it in response to the ability. Like, it's... If you untap with it, it's basically never dying.
The
funniest... You go.
I was just going to say, like, the most extreme comparison, especially since we were just talking about it, it's like Kari Zev, but it makes all of your legends Kari Zev. And it's a 2/2. You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah.
Exactly.
But with a flying Ragavan.
With a flying Ragavan, and you get to scry to it. It's so silly.
Yeah. It is also notably the only flying in your deck, which is really, really useful. The funniest thing I've done with Senna is against an opponent who had both a Murktide Regent and a Darthy Voidwalker in play.
Yeah, okay.
And you can attack me, and I will block with Senna, and it will go under the Darthy, and then when I attack next turn, which your Darthy can't block, I get my Senna back, and cool.
Yeah. I do like as well that there's the element of, like, I block your Baragoyf, I exile before damage, so it's blocked, but you're not getting life. Yeah,
that's also come up a few bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Senna has an absurd amount of weird play to it. It's very hard to evaluate.
You can consider me sold on Senna. Let's let's hit up some of these 3-drops. We've already talked about Mabel.
Yeah.
And look, can I ask about Broadside and Gut as a group? Typically, these cards exist in decks which have what I like to call just a lot of crap lying around. You know, like the decks which play Thraben Inspector, Novice Inspector. Like, you know, obviously you have Fable, but you know, like Clues, Treasures, like junk decks, right? But this deck doesn't appear to have a lot of that. So what are you mostly sacking for these cards?
Yeah, so Broadside's actually trickier to find stuff to sack to because you're giving up Broad Presence. So like it needs to kill them, or it needs to be a thing that you're okay sacking. So like a leftover Chrome Mox, or even Mox Amber when you get to that point in the game. Or like it also sort of does the Norn thing with Baragoyf, where they block a different thing with Baragoyf and you sacrifice it to Broadside, and that's pretty good. So Broadside really needs to be killing the opponent, or you need to have some kind of synergy with it, like sacking the Ragavan from Karizev, sacking the Treasure from Fable, even sacking the Crag Flame from Mabel is good some of the time, or the tokens from Ocelot Pride. Those are all relevant. Gut, though, the thing is, a 4-1 is bigger than a 2-1.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all that matters. A 4-1 Menace is better than a Savannah Lions by a lot.
Mm.
And you're usually just okay sacrificing your 1-drop legend and turning into a 4-1 Menace.
Or just like sacrificing whatever you had off the top to just make it attacking, right? Like.
Yeah, absolutely. Like on the turn you play it, you will often sacrifice your 1-drop legend or your Mock Samba, and just have a skeleton. And then any turn after that, you're sacking whatever you're playing off the top.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I suppose like that's the other difference, like because this is such an aggressive deck, like for those who haven't played against this deck, it really does get your life total down very quickly. You don't really need to sack many things, right? I imagine that Gut's probably happy if you just get like one thing out of it. It's like, okay, yeah, job's done. They've been hit before. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get 2 things out of Gut, you're likely to win a lot of the time. Because it's very hard for your opponent to get together 4 blockers for 4-1s.
Yeah, yeah. So the Spirit Guide's pretty clear. It's like part of the fast mana package. White Plume, I think the format has been terrorized enough by how good this card is. Like the initiative on 3 mana is just unbelievable. It's so much better than on 2. But one new card which you've got in here, which I think might need a bit of explanation, is this Tersa Light. Is it Light Shatter?
Light Shatter, yes.
Yeah. How does this one work?
So I can't speak to this one with as much certainty as I can speak to the rest of the cards, because I only added it about a week ago, and I haven't actually got to play with it yet. Right. So what I want to talk about it in relation to Lelia, because Lelia is the card that I cut for Tersa.
Right. Okay.
So the problem with Lelia, and the reason why Inti is not in this deck as well, is this deck loves casting things pre-combat. Like to sack to Gut, or to Broadside, or to have haste, or to trigger Arbaz, or to put counters on your Shamaru, or gain life with Guide of Souls. There's so many things that you want to be doing pre-combat. So it's kind of hard to take advantage of cards like Lelia and Inti, in terms of the cards you get off the top. So in theory, Tersa gives you... and the other thing I found is that without the equipment package, this deck is much more likely to lose a flooding out game than it was before. So I think that in theory, discarding 2 cards and drawing that many is very valuable on my higher end cards when like I know whether or not I'm flooding and know whether I want to pitch stuff. And the last line of text, that last paragraph, whenever Tersa attacks, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, exile a card at random from your graveyard, you may play that card this turn. I'm not expecting that to be super relevant, but I mostly want Tersa there as a 3/3 haste threat that's good when I'm flooding.
Yeah, okay, right. So, because I think a lot of people are naturally drawn to the last line of text, but you're just really happy for this to be kind of like almost like an aggressive Fable of the Mirror Break, where you just get like mode 2 straight away and fix up the game plan.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm thinking of Tersa as.
That's cool. I like that a lot, actually. And I think this is a kind of a natural segue into some of the 4-drops. Like Headliner Scarlet and Sundering Eruption are the type of cards which, if found on time, will just end a game. And so...
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes sense that you do actually want just a little bit of churn. I guess Senu does this as well with the Scry. Just enough to like find the cards in a timely fashion.
Yeah. One of the things that does make me sad about cutting Lelia and Inti is that those 2 cards are hilarious with Senu. If you hit Senu off the top with either of those cards and they don't block it, it does come into play attacking.
Oh, yeah, that is awesome.
I've gotten to do that only twice in the whole year I've played this deck, so it's not a big thing, but it is very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Headliner Scarlet and the Sorcery Sundering Eruption are both cards that end the game on turn 4, because this deck can produce turn 3 wins, but with most of the time with interaction, it'll kill you on turn 4, and Headliner Scarlet and Sundering Eruption usually guarantee that. If Scarlet isn't killing you though, Scarlet has card advantage text, which means that she's incredibly threatening as the game progresses as well, which is really, really good.
Yeah. She can do the Senu thing.
You can't actually do the Senu thing with Headliner Scarlet because she exiles the card face down.
Oh no, really? That makes a difference?
Yes. That does make a difference because Senu can't trigger if it's not face up.
There you go. I would never have thought that. It doesn't even say it on the card, but I suppose yeah, it's. Wait, is that true? It just says if it's exiled.
Yeah, but it can't trigger because it's face down, so that ability is not visible to the game.
God, okay. These are look. This might be the first like proper like rulings thing where I've actually learned it on the podcast. But hell yes, first for everything. Crazy.
Yeah. Scarlet also technically interacts differently as a can't block text than Sundering Eruption. Headliner Scarlet is unique in that it targets the player and says creatures that player controls can't block this turn.
Yeah.
Which means that anything they play after Headliner Scarlet has entered still can't block, which is not how those effects otherwise work.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So like, say they like flash an Ophelia after you play Scarlet, it still can't block. Whereas if they flash an Ophelia after a Sundering Eruption, that can block.
That's true. I think another thing
yeah.
worth mentioning, because I've seen some other decks put Sundering Eruption in, and I think perhaps in error, the reason which these cards are so potent in a deck like yours is because you are building a wide board, which will benefit from the can't block, and also because there's so much pressure on the life total that one turn of can't block is actually all you need. Whereas like decks which are trying to like get there of like one big threat over a longer span of turn, I don't think they're going to get as much equity out of these cards. Like this is almost like the perfect deck for the Sundering Eruption effect.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other 2/4s, Seasoned Dungeoneer. Obviously, it's an initiative card. It's very, very silly. Yep. I did play the deck with just White Plume Adventurer for a while, and it was a lot worse, which was interesting. Having 2 initiative cards is very valuable because if you lose it, having to randomly get it back is very valuable. Unlike a lot of the initiative piles, you only care about the first 3 rooms. If you get to the trap, you'll probably win.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then the other thing that Seasoned Dungeoneer does is it is a large threat that is mono-white, which means that blue blasts don't stop it, which is really relevant.
I gotta say, honestly, I have a lot of trouble even deciding whether to put blue blasts in decks like this, just because, like, whenever I see, like, Mum, I'm like, okay, it's got, like, Guide and Ocelot Pride and stuff. Like, what if they just draw the white half, you know?
Yeah. It is worth noting, I think the white half is more in the low end than the top end. Like, only White Plume and Seasoned Dungeoneer are mono-white and cost 3 or more. And I guess Witch Enchanter. So, like, the blue blasts, the way the deck tends to curve out means that it's lots of white cards early, lots of red cards later. So I think the blue blasts are generally quite good. Into me, they don't stop the early. They're not good early removal. They're better mid removal. And like, they being a counterspell is relevant for like Mabel and Pyroglyph as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
And Scarlet, because Scarlet you really don't want to make you unable to block.
Okay.
Yeah. Pyroglyph.
Yes.
I hate this card.
Are you happy you run it anyway?
Yeah, so my deck's terrible at filling the graveyard. Pyroglyph is like a 2/3 or a 3/4 if I'm goldfishing.
Yeah.
But everyone else's deck is great at filling the graveyard.
Yeah.
So it kills them. And that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's just like a huge burn spell in some ways, but with like the usual flaw of burn spells is like, what if I'm losing the board or whatever? Whereas this thing is almost guaranteed to be the biggest thing on the board.
Yeah, there's a reasonable chance Pyroglyph should be a different burn spell, like Boros Charm or Price of Progress.
Yeah.
I haven't resolved it in quite a while, and it's frequently killing a thing because it's not quite big enough. So I'm not really high on it. I just really like having a third 4-drop.
Yeah.
But there's a card from Final Fantasy that I think's going to fill this slot.
Okay.
So
do we want to talk about that? I think the removal suite kind of speaks for itself, right? This is just like all the best 1-drop removal spells that exist, and Mental Misstep.
There's only one card. There's only one thing I want to say on the removal suite. You never really want to draw more than 2, sometimes 3 pieces of removal. Just density-wise, you're likely to lose if you draw too much removal.
Makes sense.
But that's all that really is relevant there. Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of these cards, the fast mana. the flowering is, of course, like one of the main draws to be this deck. Like this card is so much better than a Glorious Anthem. Um,
It's absurd. So
what do you think is
absurd.
more important, the Ward 1 or the second power?
I think it's the Ward 1. Um, I think it's the Ward 1 because
Hmm.
the tempo you gain by them having to spend the extra mana on a removal spell more than repays you the tempo you might have lost by playing an Anthem effect. But
Yep.
also, like, you're probably gaining tempo by the Anthem effect by going, like, turn 1, 1-drop, turn 2, either Flowering, or turn 2, 2 more 1-drops, play Flowering on 3, and then you get a bunch of damage in.
Yep.
And the reason I also think that the Ward one's most important is because the plus one is also really relevant on your non-legendary threats.
Yeah, yeah.
Ocelot Pride loves +1/+1.
Mm.
That is very, very reasonable.
Can I ask, with the sequencing, do you prefer building a board out and then slamming the flowering to be like, my board's twice as big as you thought it was? Or do you just run this card out like literally ASAP to like try to get it under counter magic? Or what's normally the sequencing? Or does it is it all contextual?
The main contextual thing is based on counter magic.
Yeah.
If they don't have counter magic, then I want to build the board first and then land the flowering. If they don't have counter magic and they're unlikely to have removal, I want to build the board first and then play flowering.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have counter magic and they are likely to have removal, then I want to play flowering early so the Ward 1 is relevant.
Yeah.
If they do have counter magic, then I want to play the flowering of the White Tree whenever it is most likely to resolve.
Yeah.
Because most of the decks that have counter magic can't remove enchantments very well.
That's true. Yeah.
So if it lands, it's really good.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. And Banish is like just a really sweet removal spell, which not many people would have heard of. I think I learned about this card when I think it was like Nathan Basser cast one on my Oath of Druids once at a CanCon, but God, it's just sick. It's just like it's a historic only removal spell as an enchantment.
It's so funny. I've only been on it recently because the metagame at the other store I play at, or I played at, was Good Games Chatswood.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of show and tell stuff there. I needed another I needed a catch-all removal spell that I felt okay with. And I've been really, really happy with it. I think it only really works if you have a large number of legendary lands. I think actually it's I think I actually want one more legendary land for me to be really happy with it. Because its floor is a 5-mana Banishing Light, and that's quite bad. But its ceiling is 1-mana Banishing Light, and that's incredible. Just being able to have a catch-all removal spell on the deck is very, very nice.
Yeah. Cool.
One note on it. It's not on Magic Online.
Ah, okay, right, because the Doctor Who thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
I'm kind of mindful of time. The land base is very cool and quite unique in that there are a lot of these, as you said, like legend lands. I imagine to trigger Yoshimaru, and they don't work with the Mox Amber though. But I have two lands I'm wondering about why they're not in it. One is Arena of Glory, or maybe it is, but I can't see it.
It's not.
And the other one is there like a Legends Plaza
Plaza
or
of
something?
Heroes? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, explain these omissions.
So, the problem with Arena of Glory is you only have 2 mountains, and you only have 4 fetch lands.
Okay.
So you can't have Arena of Glory untapped enough, and this deck hates the tap land. I play the Surveil land because the Surveil land is very good to get later, but I hate tap lands with a passion. I love utility lands and I hate tap lands, is a character trait of mine.
That is kind of the answer I expected, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Plaza of Heroes is a different story. I love that card, and I played that card for quite a while. I only cut it a couple months ago, just because I actually felt like I had one too many mana sources, and I wanted to fit something else in the deck. And I didn't want to go down a legendary land, and Plaza of Heroes is not itself legendary. It also has a little bit of awkwardness with your non-legendary opening hands, because it only taps for mana of legendaries you control or to cast legendary spells. So it can be a bit awkward in some hands.
Yeah.
But it is really good on balance, and there's a chance it should still be here.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Does this deck suffer if someone puts a Blood Moon down, or do you generally not care?
A little, but not really. Blood Moon is generally fine, because, like, as I said earlier, your early game is predominantly white and your late game is predominantly red. So, by
Okay,
the time you get Blood Mooned, you're usually full of red spells in your hand.
that makes
And
sense.
it's probably fine. And you have, like, the 4 fetch lands to get basic planes, your 2 basic planes, and there are 2 initiative creatures to get it. And then,
Yep,
like, Chrome Mox sort of fixes you a little bit as well.
yep.
So Blood Moon's not too bad. Uh, Mag, Harbinger of
Activate.
the Tides can be a problem.
Okay, right, yeah.
But you hope to get Dismember or Bolt to answer that. Or Failure. I had a really funny game where they were more affected by it than I was because I had a Failure and got to just blink it and not care about it at all.
Yeah, true.
Um,
Yeah, and also the fact that your basics are planes means you can swords it, you can path it. There's quite a few outs.
yeah, yeah. So that's fine. Back to basics is actually also quite bad for me.
Yeah.
That can really get me if the board gets answered and they land a back to basics, that can be a big problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. And often the back to basics comes down just to like stop the bleeding, so to speak, and then you can take the next turn to deal with the board.
Yeah.
But you've kind of got a bit of a natural insurance in that your deck is so unbelievably aggressive that like, taking the turn off to do that will often be like the death knell in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to kill him before that matters a lot of the time.
Yeah, cool. All right, well,
Yeah.
I think honestly that was a pretty comprehensive go through of the deck. Do we want to talk about lightning? We kind of talked about Inti, but this is probably like on paper the most exciting new edition. But why is it
Yeah.
maybe not good enough?
So the problem I have with Lightning is every other 3-drop I'm playing does something on ETB.
Yeah.
Because at that stage of the game, I can't wait any longer. Or I need to leave something around. Like Mabel leaves a Crag Flame around. Gut can do something on the first attack you have. Broadside, Tursa have haste. Fable is Fable. All that stuff. White Plume is White Plume. Lightning is incredibly powerful. It probably really, really good in an aggro mirror. Being a first strike lifelink creature is absurd. If, say the play pattern is your opponent is matching your removal spell for removal spell, then Lightning is just a 3/2, because her ability only matters if other things are also hitting you. Like, which is what the deck wants to do, sure, but you can't guarantee that, and your opponent has a turn to respond to it, and almost every 4-drop is gonna just like completely blank her.
Yeah. So she needs like evasion, or she needs haste.
Yes. So if you play Lava Spur Boots in the deck, I think Lightning's like incredible. If you don't play Lava Spur Boots, I don't think you can play Lightning.
Yeah. Okay. And like, because I'm thinking like other haste givers are like Conduit Goblin or Reckless Storm Seeker, and these are like not legends. So it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could play those in Lightning is a great card for red-white aggro, but not this kind of red-white aggro.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, cool. Well, I'm interested. Like, part of me, I think on principle your logic is good. I am interested to learn, like, just on paper if it works out. I suspect that this card, just the highs have got to be so high. You know what I mean? Like you could suicide into something and trample over like 1. If it's got flowering, that's like 5 power. Like maybe it ends up being good enough.
But like the thing is that every legend in the deck, every card in the deck is better with flowering, right? So the floor needs to be high enough. Like I think a good comparison is probably like Karizev at 2.
Yeah.
Like Karizev does so much at 2 on her own without any assistance.
Yeah.
Lightning doesn't really do anything at 3 without any assistance.
Yeah.
She needs something else going for her. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Lime would usually finish off with some quick fire questions.
Sure.
Alrighty. So first quick fire question: mental misstep, 1 or 0 points?
1, absolutely.
Good man. Number 2, and this might be a little bit more difficult. What is your favorite non-red, non-white legendary creature?
Off the top of my head, probably K9.
Oh, the Doctor Who one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest pull to a non-red-white legendary deck, I think. I think K9's a really interesting Legends Matter card for if you wanted to put blue in there.
Cool. And finally, give us your quick 2-minute elevator pitch on why Lightning Bolt maybe shouldn't be in your deck.
Okay. So, 3 damage is a really bad breakpoint at the moment. Just like it might be slightly better now with Deadpool in the format actually, but like, I really just, it doesn't get you through anymore. So it's really at its best on turn 1 or 2 answering something early, which is when you don't want to be answering answering something because you want to be developing your board, and or when it's killing them, at which point any burn spell is killing them, and so you probably want a bigger burn spell like Boros Charm or like Pyrogoyf or something like that, or Price of Progress, which is in my sideboard at the moment, and like. The deck really hates drawing too many removal spells, like Path, Swords, Dismember, Banish, and then also kind of Igandra, Seed of the Empire, kind of Caracas removal spells. If you draw more than 2 in a game, if you're like 3 in a game, and your opponent's not on many creatures, that's really bad. And if they are on a bunch of creatures, you probably haven't drawn a lot of creatures to do anything with it. So, like, if you're drawing too many removal spells, Bolt can't kill them, and it's not your best one, so it just kind of gets stuck there for ages. There was like...
Did Liam leak this question to you in advance or something? This is just like an absurdly comprehensive answer as to why Lightning Bolt is not good for off the cuff.
So
I've been thinking about this for about 4 months.
Lime has truly tapped into it. It's like, I can feel that Henry really wants to take this card down.
No, there was this moment. There was this moment a couple of weeks ago where Henry, quite late in the evening, went on like a mad rampage typing up the Lightning Bolt Manifesto in Public's Point discussion.
I was just like, it's really bad at the moment.
It would be poor journalism to not bring it up here.
No, absolutely.
Lime showing his stripes.
Yeah, I mean, like, the other thing is that Burn is, like, better in density. Like, Bolt becomes better if you're playing also, like, Chain Lightning and other stuff. But I can't afford to play those cards when 3 damage doesn't kill things. I don't know. Honestly, I think Bolt is my worst removal spell. And if I were to cut one, it would probably be Bolt.
Cool. Well, look, that seems like a cool note to end on. Not the one I expected going in, but why not? Henry, thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to get like a really good look into this quite unique, probably not fully explored yet either, as you've kind of almost been like a one-man army taking the League of Legends to victory. But it's been really cool to understand the ins and outs in it. So many synergies which I didn't realize exist, and I love a good synergy deck. Guys, more broadly, if you're listening to this and you've got a deck or archetype you've had some success with, or you're just very passionate and knowledgeable about and you want to come on the cast, please shoot Lime and I a message. We're always interested in having new guests. Liam, thanks again for hosting, and also, Henry, thanks again for coming along and just providing these insights. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Sorry for hijacking your podcast.
All good. Oh yeah, I've forgotten. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify so you can hear more awesome episodes like this.